Well, FSU wants out of the ACC. Now, while that isn't the surprise, it's more so how vocal they're being about it right now. We'll talk about the president, we'll talk about the AD, we'll talk about all the spicy takes, but more importantly, what are the P5 options and where are they going to find this money? Drizzy Drake, we miss you, my friend.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. Each and every day, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you download, subscribe, and hit up our YouTube channel so you can see our lovely faces each and every day. We've got a spicy episode for you, at least cilantro style, to say the least. There's a lot coming out of the ACC world right now, and FSU President Rich McCullough has a lot of feelings about Florida State departing from the ACC. Nicole Auerbach gave us a nice little rundown of all the things he said, and we can waste no time. Let's waste no time with his starting statement. Kenton, you ready?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
We are one of the best media value teams in the United States. We, along with the Clemson and others, help to carry the value of media rights in the ACC. No offense to my colleagues, that's just the numbers. We currently face a very difficult situation. We are seeing a large media deals that have been made with places like the Big Ten and the SEC, which in many ways is existential crisis, perhaps for Florida State University. Without increasing revenue, we will face major challenges to be able to compete in football. So we'll start there. Okay. The fact that he did not mention North Carolina in terms of value of media rights is crazy. That lets me know off the gate you're not quite sure about how this works, buddy.
Listen, I want to also read a statement from somebody at Florida State that surrounding the grant of rights type of deal. The BOT chair, Peter Collins, on Florida State's future here. Okay. In terms of the grant of rights, that's the least of my worries based on what we know. We understand it. We have gotten a lot of counsel on that document. That will not be the document that keeps us from taking action, and I'll leave it at that. Babes, maybe the document in and of itself won't stop you from doing something, but maybe it's the money that will.
But the check certainly will, and that is definitely something we're going to dive into. And, you know, the fact that we all know, if you're new to this ACC game, the grant of rights is a deal till 2036 that ACC has with ESPN. They cannot get out of that deal unless they pay a 9-figure penalty, which has scared a lot of schools until now.
9.
Florida State has been very vocal going into it. We have seen the crazy 7. What was it? The 7, the people who wanted to secede.
Yeah, it was the Succession 7. They were on the brink, but they didn't pull the trigger. But the Succession 7 was very real. Secession 7 was very real.
They didn't have an 8th team, even though there was rumors that Louisville might have done that, and they decided, we're gonna pause a little bit. We're still figuring things out. Jim Phillips was able to keep them at bay. We talked about realignment ad nauseum for the past 2 years. Jim Phillips, I'm sure, is tired of talking about this, but when you have a president jumping out the frame, telling you that we want to stay in the ACC, but staying in the ACC under the current situation is hard for us to figure out how we remain competitive unless there was a major change in revenue distribution within the conference. My biggest question is competitive in what regard? Like, you're not going to be able to win because you can't recruit good enough, because you don't have the same horse in the stable, because you don't have the same money coming in. Like, what is the real issue in terms of competitiveness amongst, let's say, the SEC and the Big Ten, Ken?
Football is turning into an arms race. That's the reality.
But hasn't it always been that?
Well, yeah, but more so than ever before. We're looking at an arms race of facilities. We're looking at a arms race in terms of, or not even just an arms race. a hyperspeed arms race where you have to real time be ahead of your competition. Oh, they got a sauna over there, but we got a sauna and a lazy river. We got a sauna, a lazy river, and a barbershop. We got a sauna, lazy river, barbershop, and we got a gaming console, a gaming lounge over here. Oh, we had a gaming lounge back in 2010. You way behind, brother. We got a barbecue pit we just had. So this real-time arms race is resulting in teams trying to squeeze every penny out of this. And this is why it's a totally separate rant, and it's something that we can go over another day. But this is why I'm totally for players going wherever they want to go and getting as much money as they can in NIL, because you're not going to tell me that these universities are saying, hey, $30 million a year ain't enough. $30 million a year, we need more. If there's a chance for us to get 50, we need 50. Why?
Yeah.
Land Grant University last time I checked. Yeah. The funding of the university at large in and of itself, and most of the football programs funding is, or not most of the football programs funding, but a good chunk of the football programs funding is going to come from the public. So if we talk about, well, let's just look at only what we're making for the conference and how much we could be pulling back. Sure, let's look at that. But again, I don't think that all parties are being honest here, because Florida State has in essence backed themselves into a corner if they were to leave. Because if they were to leave, where can you go? Let's look at all the Power Five for a second here, right? The Big 12 is, or we got the Power Five. So you're in the ACC.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's pump brakes.
Okay,
all right. We have time. We have time.
I'm just saying. I wanted to,
I hear you.
I almost got my preaching towel out, because I'm ready to get into this, because I think that Florida State has backed themselves into a corner that just looks kind of ridiculous right now.
I feel you 1,000%. One of the tweets that came out from Les Johns, who covers Wake Forest, he said Florida State was a combined 26-33 and without a winning season in the ACC between 2017 and 2021. I don't think that the latest media rights deal for the Big Ten and SEC were their biggest issue. That's all right. A little cilantro to the section, because y'all are more focused about trying to get that revenue up. Is it because that's why you're losing? Mike Norvell can't get it done? Are we trying to distract from the fact that there's not going to be a championship and won't be in a national conversation? What is it really?
You are lying to yourself, and I'm sorry that I'm struggling over my words, because anybody who knows me knows that the words are normally never a problem for me. You are lying to yourself if you are saying that the revenue or lack thereof is why you are not where you want to be. Cincinnati has been to a playoff.
Yeah, that's it. Come on.
They've been to the same amount of playoffs as Florida State. Now let's look at their revenue and see what they were doing when Luke Fickell was there. Let's see what type of bank they were breaking out of the American Conference in that point in time.
Yeah, well, come on.
What are we doing here? We can't keep up. Oh, we need to compete. Oh, the caliber of player we're competing for. Again, this has nothing to do with whether or not we can win, with player health and safety, with all those things. This thing has become a giant, measuring contest where you've got to roll out the biggest and the best and the most of everything. That's the reality of what we're looking at. Yeah. Oh, you got all those beautiful chefs and all that good stuff over there. Well, great. We're gonna bring in Super Chef Bobby Flay. Well, great. We're gonna bring in Wolfgang Puck. Well, great. We're gonna bring in Gordon Ramsay, and he's gonna scream at everybody. That's what's happening right now. I just want more than the next person. I want to have a top on the next person. And here's the thing. I'm not mad at these universities for wanting to maximize their cash out, but just say that. Say that. Stop pretending, how can we stay competitive? Come on.
Let's also talk here. Now, is Rick doing this to pander or to sort of build fire behind ultimately asking these jokers in Florida for more money? When you talk to the board, you're talking to, your constituents, you're trying to tell them like, hey, if they don't give us more money, we're out of here. We're skedaddling. Pew. You know what I'm talking about? Like, is that the reason why he's having these conversations versus there's legitimacy behind him saying, y'all got 12 months to figure it out, or we're getting our exit strategy together?
Hey, more power to them. Get their exit strategy together. I'm not going to pretend to know, because I don't have a source close to Florida State that's giving me deep detail on the exact motivations. The folks that I have talked to from down there in Seminole Land have expressed to me that this is very explicitly about the money. This is very explicitly about getting the most money possible. and looking at different ways they can get that. And I hadn't been presented with this is a bluff in order to get the taxpayers to foot a higher bill. I have not heard that. So
or
that's
maybe it's a bluff for the ACC to change the distribution model that they have currently, where everyone gets a fair piece of the pie. We'll talk about that all here. Besides, also, where will Florida State actually go? But first, got to pay some bills these days. Every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is go to LinkedIn Jobs, add the job that you're hiring, put the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you like to interview and hire. Go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Kenton Gibbs here. We're talking through Rick McCullough, the FSU president, saying that the Seminoles, Florida State University, wants out of the ACC. They got 12 months to figure it out. We're getting our strategy together. There is money, apparently, allegedly. It's 9-figure penalty they're trying to put in place for this grant of rights deal, and they don't really care about it. They say, listen, with all that's going on in Florida State, the state of Florida, don't worry about it. We'll figure out a way. That's cute. So say, for argument's sake, they figured it out. They want to go somewhere else. They want to find a new home. We all know that the biggest options right now are the Big Ten and the SEC. If you do a deeper dive in the Big Ten, you'll see that it's not all roses and rainbows in terms of how their deal is panning out, but that's another story for another day. For SEC's sake, of course, it's the SEC. It means more. Apparently, they have so much money to give away, and they certainly do. They have Oklahoma and Texas joining. So you have a pretty heavy docket right now. FSU's options would only be SEC because they don't have the credentials to get into the Big Ten.
In the words, I love when you give me the opportunity to quote a Detroiter. I love quoting Detroiters. It's the greatest city in the world. Let me quote Jalen Rose for you real quick. You're only as faithful as your options. Okay. So what does that mean? You know, Jalen Rose said that in front of his fiance. That was crazy work. But what it means is the more options you have, the more things that can go your way, the more possible or potential areas you can go to, the more likely you are to look around and say, ooh, what's going on? Well, Florida State is on the dance floor looking for a partner amongst a very, very, very limited group. What are we, again, Power 5, let's go down to 5. You're already in the ACC. The Pac-12, a lot going on over there. Not sure you want to be jumping onto the Titanic while it's going down. That doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. Then you've got the Big Ten, which you've already talked about in terms of not meeting the credentials to qualify there. And so that leaves you with the SEC and the Big 12. Well, here's a fun fact about the Big 12. Over their current deal, there will be times where the ACC is slated to make more than them. Mm-hmm. So if you're leaving because of the monies, the Big 12 doesn't make sense. So now you've only got one potential partner on that dance floor. Now, here's the problem with that. When you only have one partner, you're going to get lowball. You're going to get, well, why would they lowball them? That doesn't make sense. Look at what happened with the teams who went over from the ACC to the Big Ten. I'm looking at you, Maryland, in terms of leaving and saying, well, we got to go somewhere. We got to get out of here, and being at a place where they knew you had nowhere else to go.
They don't really want you. Yeah. And we ain't heard of Maryland since. No.
Not only do they not really want you, they're going to withhold funds. They're going to say, oh, well, you're not really fully over here because you didn't fully buy out of the grant of right. Oh, well, and even if you do fully buy out, again, you only have them as an option. So they now have you at their mercy to say, we know you're a huge brand, but we'll allow you all to do but this much in terms of what percent of the revenue we fully share with you. You can go the independent route if you want to, but mind you, you're trying to go independent and work out new TV deals and all that when you just paid out hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Come on.
1,000%.
You've backed yourself into a corner. You look real bad. You look silly.
Crazy. You're jumping out the frame, and I get it. I understand the passion. I get the fan base being passionate behind. They're riding behind Rick and everything with it. But let me tell you, sometimes it just comes down to the almighty dollar. Sometimes it just comes down to the nuts and bolts of what it is. If you can't pay it, and if you also feel desperate and out of options, people smell that. People understand that, and they know that. And let's beyond that. Let's talk X's and O's. You have not won anything in how long? You're still trying to win an ACC championship. You're not guaranteed to do that.
Remember what happened last time the boys played Bama? Entire programs.
You're trying to beat Clemson. You're trying to compete. To me, this is the worst distraction right now for a program who is trying to dial in and focus on taking down Goliath. Also a program who has everything ahead of them and to be great. When I say the target is the biggest it's ever been, don't mess around and not find yourself in that ACC championship.
Oh boy, that would be.
Do not find yourself out of that college football playoff at this point.
Well, they can find themselves outside the college football playoff. They can lose the ACC championship and still would be like, ha, but not like people dying laughing and pointing. If you don't make the ACC championship after making all of this fuss and ruckus and noise, giving people 12-month ultimatums, the ultimatum ain't just a show on Netflix anymore, people. Apparently, it's making its way over to ESPN, okay? but with that being said, again, you have to show improve. The ACC has created a distribution model that rewards teams that show improve, that show in the sports that are revenue generating. If you do good things, if you go deep in tournaments, if you make playoffs, if you do the things, you do the thing, we'll pay the money. Well, if y'all don't do the thing, you can't be mad at nobody that you didn't get the money.
But also, this is the same ESPN who's literally laying off, whatever nice words you want to call it, some of the best in the business. Like there is no other money to be had or no, you can't go to ESPN and try and negotiate anything. So I see their side in terms of how does it get better where we're at, but how does it get better where you're going?
That's why I say that they've backed themselves into a corner a lot like, and I hate to talk about this, but a lot like the Dame and Miami Heat situation where it's like, well, I only want to go there. Well, great. If you only want to come here, we're going to offer up a second round pick and a bunch of terrible players. Why would we offer up a lot if you want to come here and you only want to be here? That doesn't make sense. Why would I offer top dollar for a player that basically you have no other options? You have nowhere else that you're going to go. Like that just doesn't make sense. So, it's to me, I think it's very simple. I think this is very, very plain and clear to see. Florida State is they're clawing and trying to apply pressure to the ACC, but the ACC ain't done. They've got lawyers too. The same way Florida State has counsel looking at it, the ACC had counsel to draw this thing up. The same way the Florida State is saying, oh, we've got the money to pay. ACC is saying, hey, if you want to pay it, great. Do what you got to do. If you want to give us $300 million, do it.
Sure. I guess I'm wondering, though, at the end of the day, does the ACC call FSU's bluff and say, yeah, go ahead. See how that works out for you?
I mean, what else can ACC do? Here's the thing. At a certain point, you're being bullied into doing things that you don't want to do. You've already recreated the revenue distribution model because of teams allegedly wanting to leave, not being happy, all that.
Sure.
How many concessions will you make as a conference before you rename this thing the Florida State and Clemson Conference? Florida State, Clemson, and the Pips.
Yeah.
How many concessions can you make?
Sure.
At some point in time, you have to put your foot down and say, hey, listen, we've done all we can for y'all. We've done all we can for you. I'm sorry that y'all signed a legally binding contract, but you did.
And nobody held their foot to the fire and made them do it. So that's one thing. But I also say, ACC, don't get punked like this. Definitely don't allow yourselves to get punked any further than it seems to be already going for you. So I would say call the bluff, let them exit, and let me know where they're going to find all this good money. Speaking of which, the money part is the most important conversation. Because where's the money? Florida State, public university, state university, funded by its people. Let me know where you're finding a 9-figure penalty in order to get up out of here, especially with what's going on in Florida, in the state of Florida right now.
I mean, again, I don't think that there's any way that Florida State, quote unquote, wins out of this. And I could be wrong. I've been wrong in the past. I'll be wrong again in the future. This could be a moment where I'm wrong. If the goal is, if you're saying over the next 30 years to maximize our revenue and whatnot, it could be possible that biting a $300 million bullet is what's best for that. But even in that scenario, I'm not sure, based on the fact that if you do the math here, you say, okay, we pay out the $300 million and we take a reduced revenue share in whatever new conference we go to for a certain amount of time. I don't see where your win is. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't see how you can say, hey, whatever we do, we'll win and we'll make this thing possible, or we'll get more money because we left early. I don't see it. I think your best hope and best chance is to stay put and win something. Because if you stay put and win something, guess what's going to happen? The new revenue distribution model means that you will be increasing your money.
Yeah.
So, I personally don't get it, but if it, maybe there's some things going on behind the scenes that I'm very aware of. You don't know what you don't know. And maybe I don't know a lot about this situation, but from everybody I've talked to, it seems like Florida State is peacocking in a situation where, nobody's scared here. You're playing chicken with a Mack truck.
I mean, you've got Florida fans, you've got Miami fans, you've got Florida State fans, you've got UCF fans, you have USF fans, you have Florida Atlantic fans, you have FIU fans. There's a lot of Florida schools. So everybody ain't on your side. A lot of people are waiting for your downfall. And to me, you're just giving them the ammo that they need to say, yeah, what in the hell are y'all doing for real?
I mean, they're a huge national brand, and I think that
sure. Are they $300 million brand?
And here's the deal: throughout all of college football, how many brands are that big? If we look at the teams that have left, and I keep having to say this because people aren't paying attention to this very important part. Texas and Oklahoma, how did they leave? Did they leave by doing a payout, or did they say, "Oh, our TV deal is up. Great, we're going"? They
left because their deal was up.
USC and UCLA, did they leave because, oh man, we're going to take a payout, or did they leave because, oh, our TV deal is up? Great.
Our deal is up. And listen, you can cry about it, but you're going to cry till 2036. Or at least 2033.
So let me ask you this. Who has left of all of these teams that have left their conferences? Who has left their conference via the payout option and looks like, oh, that's their program is something we'd like to model ourselves after at this point? Who?
Yeah.
Who?
Not many. Not many that we can call from. Let's look at some of the questions or comments from some of our faithful people over here at Locked On ACC. Slam Tana says, call the bluff. The FSU brand doesn't carry the same weight it did in 1994. I agree.
Yeesh.
I think they're a very prominent band. I mean, 1994 is a little aggressive.
Yeah,
there was a whole Jameis Winston thing, they won a whole champ Jimbo era. Like, before it was a downfall, like they were legit. They were legit.
There was a rise before the fall. There was
definitely a rise before the fall. It was Clemson, Florida State for a good little minute there. So, let's maybe not. But I do agree. Call the bluff. Go ahead. You want to leave? Go ahead. I want Jimmy P. He's gonna have to say something.
It's like dating in a small town. Like, there's only but so many folks that are available. Okay. And left your old late. Well, congratulations. You know what I mean? It's about 5 other people available. What we going to do here? What we going to do? So,
Dave Jiren said Florida State will go nowhere without Miami. Their brand doesn't hold as much weight as it once did. Their best chance is to find 7 other schools to dissolve the grant of rights. Now, my biggest thing,
and the Kofi is something that I needed to see today. Thank you so very much, Base Jiren, for that. I needed to see Jiren and the Kofi. Go ahead, Candace.
My biggest thing is, like, if you're not sitting here and playing nice with the friends within your group, you're really going to have a hard time, because they have some with them 7 schools now. They could have had a tea and maybe a little golf session and found the 8th.
I disagree.
Really?
There are not 8 teams that know, hey, we would make more money elsewhere. There aren't. There just aren't. The numbers don't work out in the favor of that. The numbers work out that, I learned a very simple lesson from Planet of the Apes that I will never forget. Apes together, strong. Apes alone, weak. These teams are the apes, in terms of these teams and their brands and how much money they're going to make, right? These teams together as a conference, as they are, y'all are good. Everybody's going to get paid. Of the 8 teams, how many of them would be in the positive from having to find a new conference? How many of them are AAU certified so that they can go to multiple conferences and they can have a bidding war of sorts? How many are?
A lot of y'all don't have that Notre Dame pool, that type of independent prowess that you think. And I'm going to need help, y'all.
Notre Dame travels everywhere, baby. Wherever they go to play, you will see. Even when they were completely mid, there were folks following that team around. I grew up during a time where Notre Dame was in that mid zone, and yet every time they played Michigan, them folks were out.
Several people, in droves. Several people chopped, but everybody got an Irish clover somewhere.
It's very simple to me. It's very simple to me. And it goes beyond that. That's a private school. You don't know what their coffers look like. They have no need to tell anybody, baby, you're a public land-grant university. We know it's there. We know. You have to disclose it. You have to disclose that information. We know what's going on there.
Even the funny money has to be disclosed in some sort of frame or capacity. But here we are. Let's say for, ACC is trying to figure themselves out still. They want to hop on the train and still talk about this realignment, renegotiation, and Pac-12 is going downhill, and Florida State might be along with them and trying to find a new home, and ACC needs to recoup. So within the next 6 months of hopes of renegotiating a TV deal with Peninsula Peace thought, but also from Terrence saying that ACC needs to add Washington and Stanford. All I say to that is, as someone who works in logistics, that just sounds stressful.
I mean, here's the thing. These conferences, I've talked about this before, and I'll say this again now. These conferences and this realignment has nothing to do with player health and safety, has nothing to do with these young men and women as student athletes, young people as student athletes, has nothing to do with that. This is all about the money. If we were doing this for logistics, if we were doing this to make sure that these players are getting what they need outside of sport, there is not a world in which USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. That world doesn't exist. That world simply does not exist. But here we are, because we don't live in the world of if ifs and buts were berries and nuts, squirrels would never starve. We don't live in that world. We live in the world where, again, these universities, these conferences are trying to milk every single dime that they can.
That's true. And we're only trying to make the rich richer, and we could care less about those in between. And that's a really great way to end it, because at the end of the day, what does this do for Florida State beyond distract from what is? And that's trying to win an ACC championship. That's trying to be in the college football playoff conversation. And it's a shame that we're not talking about that versus, somebody having a little tantrum. You feel me? But either way it goes, we've got preseason conversations because we should be talking about Drake May. But Justin, you're in luck. We'll do that on tomorrow's episode. So come back tomorrow. Make sure you check us out. Make sure that you follow, download, subscribe to the podcast from wherever you listen. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs. Until next time.